All right, Albert Breer. So you just walked us through what the Commanders are doing and their final day of having prospects in. Jaden Daniels is there. Drake May is there. J.J. McCarthy's there. Michael Penix is there. You think it's going to be Jaden Daniels when it's all said and
I
done?
think so.
Okay. So then
Yeah.
let's just remove him from that. And let me
Yep.
ask you a sports talk radio question.
Okay.
Which of the other three is the most likely future Giants quarterback getting a nice inside look-see at what the Commanders facility looks like, Albert?
That's a good question. That's a
Thank
really
you.
that's why you're the best, Rich.
All right,
Yeah,
thank you.
perfect way to put that.
Thank you.
We can bring this back to the NFC East and maybe the future Belichick quarterback.
Who
Right?
knows? Who knows? Because Daboll might do very well with this individual while Daniel Jones convalesces or Drew Lock allows him to wait. I don't know. So what do you have?
I think if the Giants are going to take a quarterback, if they're going to trade up for a quarterback, my guess would be it'd be Drake May. And I think absent a trade up for Drake May, my guess would be maybe they look at a different position. Now again, none of that's set in stone. But I, I've heard them connected to Drake May for 2 months now. So I don't know if they like him enough to trade up to 3 to get him based on what I think it will cost, what I think New England would make someone pay to move into that third overall spot. But it's really made me think that Drake May is going third overall, whether it's to New England, whether it's to the Giants, or whether it's to Minnesota. I just think Drake May is going to wind up going third overall right now.
So then if you say the Giants don't go and get Drake May and sit there at 6, you think they would go at another position because McCarthy's off the board, or they would just rather do that rather than and leave McCarthy there for the 7th overall selection?
I've heard Minnesota. So I think Minnesota's in play to move up even if May's not there. Like I think Minnesota, this is just my sense, would be that Minnesota would be maybe comfortable enough with 4 guys rather than just 3, where they would make that sort of move up to go and get one of them. And so I think like I could certainly see Minnesota, if they can't get up to 3, to go and get May, going up to 4 or 5 to go and get McCarthy. I don't think McCarthy falls very far below 4 or 5.
Okay.
Now it sounds to me like Arizona's driving a pretty hard bargain at 4. I think the Chargers would be open to moving out of 5 if the right offer comes along. And the tricky thing then is that has to be an on the clock thing, right? Like, Rich, if you think about this, like say you don't like Arizona, you don't like what Arizona wants for you to go up and get them if you're Minnesota, right? Well, you can't execute the trade with the Chargers now, can you? Because if you do that, then you risk somebody jumping over you to 4. And now what have you traded up for?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, so or you might wind up in a position where you've got to trade up twice. You know, like Arizona might have another suitor on the line or whatever, and they make you come up and pay more draft capital to get from 5 to 4 because Arizona knows we're not taking a quarterback and we'll get the same player at 5 anyway. Right. So you almost have to, if you're Minnesota, if the plan was to go up to 5 or 6, wait until you're on the clock to do that, to execute that trade. So that's where I think it gets kind of tricky, you know? And again, Arizona sort of holds all the cards here. They've got 2 first-round picks. They can sit there at 4th overall and take Marvin Harrison or Malik Neighbors for Kyler Murray to throw to and you know, have an elite receiver that they're adding to the group. And now they've got quarterback, receiver, left tackle taken care of for the foreseeable future, and let's go. Or they can add even more draft capital.
And
you know,
still get that wide receiver for Kyler Murray. You know, if they
right,
don't,
like
if
I mean, like if you move down to
far.
11,
right?
If you move down to 11, like, are we talking about Roma Dunze then? You know what I mean? Like, could he make it to 11? I mean, it's possible.
I doubt that.
I don't think he will. But I mean, even then, you're talking about maybe Brian Thomas, who's a really good player from LSU.
There's tons of them. Personally, I think, just to wrap up this conversation, and then again, I'll love to have you on next week too. Obviously, draft week. I see 4 quarterbacks, 3 wide receivers: Joe Alt, Dallas Turner, and Brock Bowers. That's your top 10. Just depends.
I think that makes sense. Yeah, I think that makes sense. So I think there is a scenario out there where we don't have a defensive player in the top 10, which would be wild, right?
Sure would
But
be.
if you think about it, so like let's say the 4 quarterbacks go in the first round, then you have the 3 receivers. That gets you to 7, right?
Yep.
So I think Joe Alt's pretty much a lock to go somewhere in the top 10.
Yep.
Let's say Jim Harbaugh takes him at 5, okay? Now the Titans are probably taking an offensive lineman. Maybe that's Olu Fashanu at 7. Maybe it's J.C. Latham. And then do the Falcons feel like, oh, well, we got to take Neighbors now, at 8. Then the Bears take a Dunze at 9, and then you have the Jets sitting there 10 with maybe Brock Bowers, right? So there is a scenario out there. I think Dallas Turner probably goes 8 to Atlanta if, things turn out a certain way. But there's the scenario where like Malik Neighbors falls into Atlanta's lap, and then do they say he's just too good a player to pass up there, even though we've already invested all this capital into our offensive skill players,
Yep.
It's the top of the draft's really fascinating that way. And the great thing about it, Rich, is like, I've had to tell people a lot of years when everybody's all excited about this draft, like, no, this is kind of a crappy draft. This is not great at the top. We have like super elite prospects this year. Like Harrison and Neighbors legitimately could be like Julio and AJ as prospects, right? Like you could see them that way. Joe Alt, I think, is a top shelf left tackle prospect. Bowers has some flaws. Maybe he's not for everybody, but a really, really good tight end prospect. And then you have 4 quarterbacks going in the top 10, so I think it's going to be really exciting to see. And, like you could look at the Bears as being a pivot point. Like a lot of people don't think they're going to stay at 9. They could move up or move down. The Jets, like, Joe Douglas, I think would really like to take an offensive tackle if the right one falls to him at 10, to set themselves up for the future at that position with 2 33-year-olds there. It's like every team you look at as you go on down the line has another layer of intrigue, which should make for a really, really exciting Thursday night.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.